really trying to prioritize production at this point. I do think that this is sort of a very visible element, and it really takes us inside of this massive structure. And so I'm going to want to lay that out as quickly as possible. And again, I'm just going to block it out. I'm not going to go too far into modeling all of the details and just build it up slowly. So I only have enough, as much detail as I need, as opposed to going overkill with it. I do have my objects off in the distance. I might want to expand these out a bit. So if we go into our procedural maze, I might want to stretch this out, right? So it sort of like fades off in the distance and we can kind of see. I would have to move these over. Let's actually do that now because it's easy enough to do, so that, you know, we're kind of seeing these as far as I can see. Just fill in the peripheral, so maybe that's good. And so if we go back down to eye level, just use F to get back down to eye level. We can kind of see these off. Slow the camera down. Sorry. Right, and I can reduce the number of them if I wanted to. But, you know, now when I look left and look right in VR, or right and left in VR, I can start to see that there's just a bunch of them out there. So yeah, let's go ahead and model out the stair a little bit. So I'm going to do that in 3ds Max. I can control and select these. And what I might just do, instead of deleting them, I'm going to essentially hide them. Let's see if they should be remembering. So we want these invisible and make these actors hidden in the game, right? I'm going to go here and I'm going to select this and go to File, Export Selected, and I'm going to make this an Unreal Datasmith asset. And I'm going to find a good spot for it. Sample assets, Datasmith assets from 3ds Max. So I'm going to create a new folder here, call it Y Citadel Internal. Let's call it Casbah. Why not? Okay, so I'm going to type that here. Y Citadel Casbah, and it's going to create that folder for me. So I don't need to create a folder. So I'm going to hit save. I only want to include my selection. Current frame only, sure, that's if there were an animation, which there isn't. And I'm going to hit OK. And so now in my Unreal project, excuse me, I'm going to look for, I believe it's in the geometry folder, Datasmith, blockout scene. And I think I'll just create a folder here. Call it. And then let's click on the Datasmith import button and find that asset that we created. Oops, it's under teaching, Yale, assets, Datasmith, 3ds Math. Wow, going deep. So there's our Datasmith file, and I'm going to hit open and tell it where to put it. So geometry, Datasmith, Casbah. Hit OK. Geometry, material, and textures. I think that's fine for now. We could adjust these elements later. And so something is going on with this. It looks like, here, let me change the camera speed. I have a feeling, yeah. So some of these are, the normals have reversed. So I'm going to go in here now, go back into my editable poly. All of these stairs are backwards. And so let's go ahead and identify which normals are not working. And it's actually, I think these are working. Right? So that is visible. Yeah, so that's good. That's good. It's really just, let's uncheck these, and it's all of the shift, check, 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 check. The shortcut for this would be to make two-sided materials, but I really don't like that solution. It's just so much easier to go in here, either in Rhino, and just flip it. Flip, done. Okay. This protrusion I'm not liking so much, so I'm gonna pull this back a little bit. I don't mind some kind of wonkiness, but maybe not too much. Okay, so let's fix that and re-export. File, export. Here's our Datasmith. Save. I want to replace it. Yes. Hit OK. And so now I can just re-import this. And there we go. Right. And so as we build, right, I didn't go too far, but I might have to add some more stuff, right? Because now we can see back into it, and I could just add a wall that blocks it off. But I want to fill in the holes in my scene. The other thing I might want to do is test this material, and so let's look for our brutalist material, and I'm going to drag this and apply it to our scene here. Right. And I might want to do the smaller version. Right. And we could start to see some pixelation or the faceting here. And so what I might want to do is smooth this out, make it a little bit smoother. Or I guess the opposite of it would be to make it blockier, right? I might add another structure here to sort of break up the width of this step. So maybe there's like some kind of a kiosk or a structure, and I could just add a box here, or I could do this in Unreal. Again, my goal here is essentially to just compose the scene in a way that makes the most sense. Right, composition is the name of the game right now. Right, so I don't even have to use 3ds Max for this. I might just use a cube from. So again, I'm just trying to break up the scale of the scene. And then there'll be, again, some fog. That's going to help break this down even further. And I'll change the material. So at this point, I'll slow down the video a little bit and talk about a cheap fog effect. So I went ahead and just did a search, UE4 cheap fog, and found this tutorial. Have no idea if this is going to be good or not, but here's a screenshot that the YouTube or YouTuber posted. Just basically copied that, and now I'm in Unreal Engine, and I created a material. So if you right click on material, I called it pp underscore fog. Let's just call it fog2. Let's go into fog1 because fog1 is empty, right? All I did here was I changed from surface to post-process. And what this allows us to do is it creates a post-process material, which is essentially like a layer on top of a camera. If we apply this post-process material to a post-process volume, it's going to affect every camera. However, we could also apply a specific post-process material to any specific camera. So in the post-processing section of a camera, you can apply this material. So you're essentially doing like Photoshop type things, effects and things like that, layered on either the entire scene or on the individual camera itself. So let's go ahead and rebuild this. I'm essentially just going to copy what this person created, which is what the YouTube video would go through. And so we want a texture coordinate node. Drag from there. Scene texture. Except we want this to be, whoops, post-process input 0. And we're gonna pull off of that one and get a component mask. And this component mask is going to be our BNG. Oops, sorry. And this is gonna tie into a lerp, which is linear interpolate. And basically the way these work is there's an alpha that affects between two textures. So one of these textures is fog and one of these textures is not fog, and you're essentially using the distance, in this case the scene depth, to determine the, whether something is foggy or not. So the farther it is in the scene, which is defined by the scene depth here, the foggier it is, and that becomes the alpha channel for this lerp node, right? So we essentially just copy all 3 of these, or all 4 of these, Control C, Control V. And if we look here, same thing is happening. RGB, and there's a linear interpolate, and then there is a texture, well, let's just type parameter, and this is a, would this be a vector parameter? Yeah, so let's call this fog color, and we can set the default fog color to be anything that we want. Should it be bluish or grayish? I don't know. So anyway, we can adjust that as we see fit, and this becomes our B component of the lerp. And to be honest, okay, here we go. This person set the so this person is using the alpha channel from this vector parameter. So we need to go in and set this alpha channel to 0.5. So it's kind of like a 50-50 between the scene. The scene texture and this fog. So this part of the lerp is applying a 50% fog, over essentially what's identical to this, which is just the scene texture, whatever you were seeing in the scene. And so that's the B component of this lerp. And then the last thing we need is scene depth, and set a parameter for fog distance. And so let's right click here and look for scene depth. And we need a scalar parameter, which we'll call fog depth. And I believe this person is dividing these two. So if we pull from here and do a divide, we're dividing one from the other. And this is to adjust, to be able to adjust the depth of the fog, or the distance that the fog starts. And then this is getting clamped. And clamping is just taking the range of whatever the number is and limiting it to 0 and 1. So it's essentially turning a number into a percentage. And then hit apply. And, you know, I might have screwed something up here. There probably is something with a default value. And you can start to see the fog effect increasing as I increase this number. Okay, so let's go ahead, hit save and apply. Let's close this out. I'm going to create, and I'm going to delete this because we're not actually using this anymore. I'm going to create a material instance of this. Create material instance. There it is. And then I'm going to use this material in my post-processing volume. So I believe there should be in the VFX a post-process volume. And within the post-process volume, we go down to rendering features. There's a slot here for post-process materials. Let's lighten this up a little bit. Now I'm going to click on this plus button and call an asset reference. And that asset is the post-process material that I created. You can see that that fog is being applied. Okay. What we can do in this material instance is we can start to affect these scalar parameters, right? We can change the fog color, and we could change the fog depth. So let's switch it up here. This is not a very good fog, because it seems to, once we hit positive numbers, oh, there we go. We need big numbers. Right? It kind of looks like a wall of pollution. I suppose the bigger question is how it starts to impact. And maybe that's okay. And then we can change the color by going in here. That's a little bit better. Right. You can see how the water turns from blue into this kind of dirty color. Maybe it's best to set the fog to white, and then let's play with these parameters. So now we have pretty good control of where the fog begins to appear. So things could start to look a little bit more distant. I might explore different options here. I do think the benefit of using something like this is that, excuse me, it is much cheaper than using the exponential height fog. And again, we'll test this in VR to see how this starts to look. It kind of gives it a dreamy quality. It adds a certain amount of bloom. And so, you know, this might be okay. I might want to bring in these assets a little bit closer, so that they're a little bit more visible, as I mentioned. So maybe I'll just do that now. That's in the Y direction. Let's bring these. Are these coming in, or are they going farther away? Right. And so if these are much closer, I could also just reduce the number of them. Here, let's go to the top view so we can see what's happening. What's happening? Where are these things? Let's go to the top view. Where's my procedural maze at? Oh, here it's on. I also rotated this. Maybe I'm going to set this to 0 again. Let's go back to perspective. What's this? 90? Any of that. Right, so let's go to this procedural maze. Let's reduce this number. And then start changing my grid size. This. Let me pull it back a little bit. Whoa, this one's very close. What's going on? Okay, something like that. Oh, let's reduce this down to 3. Maybe then I can bring it forward without it. Ah. That's annoying. There we go. I may want more blank spots. Set this back to 2. So in other words, more blank spots in my grid. I could also change my seed a little bit because these two are the same. Let's go to random seed. This might be good. This might be good. Move this over. Parallax is good here. Actually, I can block, or I can try to block this. Maybe I prefer blocking that. Breaks it up a bit. These are all the same. Okay, that might be it. And with the post-process material, what I could also do is adjust it a little bit. So let's go to PP Fog. We're using this alpha and just setting it to 50, but maybe I want to create a different fog amount. Make this a range from 0 to 1 and set this default to 0.5 and make this the alpha. Hit apply. Right, so right now it's the same, but if we go into our instance now, we have our fog amount and we can kind of add or subtract this as we fit. Right, and then we could change our fog distance to something like that. There's some artifacts here on these materials. You can kind of see the tops of these edges, so we'll have to go in. I'll go in and try to clean that up. But yeah, something like this might be doing okay. Yeah, I think I want to cover that up. Okay. So that's the post-process material, a cheaper version of the fog. I'll link to the YouTube video, but just look for cheap fog in Photoshop. Oh, sorry, in UE4 cheap fog, and you'll find plenty of examples of using a very similar technique of looking at scene depth and applying a fog based on the distance away from the camera. Okay.